Hello and welcome to the Ireland on the Fly podcast about the people and places of fly fishing in Ireland. For the last few weeks of the season, we wanted to speak to fly anglers to find out how their season has gone. You hear different stories about how conditions have been and how lochs and rivers have fared around the country, so what has it actually been like for anglers on the ground? This week, James Barry, the fishery scientist and highly accomplished fly fisherman, joins us with some of the highlights from his 2024 season, including a first trip to Patagonia, some incredible mayfly fishing on Sheelin, consistent run of salmon over the summer months, and now autumn bass to look forward to as well. But first, Tom, we do have to talk about the news that farm salmon from the recent Killary Harbour escape have now been caught in rivers in Galway and Mayo, including the Arif, Dowros, Bondora, Owen Moor and the Corrib River as well. It's just another sad, tragic story that's going on, and the worst case of it now is that these escapees are going to be mingling with the wild fish, and God knows what the consequences are going to be for the wild salmon that were already in danger.
Yeah, I mean, already as we've touched, almost hitting crisis point, and then this to happen. And this, of course, is another element of this form of aquaculture that we hadn't even really discussed before. We discussed other problems with it, but this is farm fish intermingling with our wild stock, and this has, potential for, long-lasting damage.
Exactly.
So, and we didn't discuss this, we've discussed this quite a bit in a good few episodes, and I know you've also as well in your series on the salmon as well, gone over quite a bit, but this really just brings another side to it entirely. Whereas, this will be less likely to happen if there were land-based operations. Simple as that.
Exactly. Simple as that. Exactly.
Yeah, simple as that.
We will be speaking to Billy Smith, who is the chairperson of Galway Bay Against Salmon Cages. He's going to be on next week's episode, so we're going to find out a lot more about this, the campaigning work they're doing. And I suppose this is the thing, we've always said this about the ocean. It's under the water. It goes under the radar in that sense. You don't really see what's going on or the damage that's being done. But now when we're seeing this, and in fairness, fair play, the IFI, they were on Morning Ireland. The stories were on the mainstream press. It's starting to get to that stage where it's, okay, it wasn't just escapees. Like you said, it's now affecting the wild stock, which are already in such endangered numbers. I mentioned as well, and we posted on this as well on our Facebook and Instagram channels, that around this time last year, actually, there was a massive escape of farmed fish around the Icelandic waters. And again, they were up in arms, the population, because their concerns were the exact same. And they actually had fishermen going up into the rivers for weeks and months afterwards, trying to catch what farmed fish they could. Obviously, it's a bit of a needle in a haystack because there was so many. But there was such anger, 1% of the Icelandic population came out and protested in Reykjavik against salmon farms. There was a hope that because there was a new bill going through in the last few months through the Icelandic Parliament, that this public pressure would make them force change when it came to the regulations of the salmon farming system in Iceland. That still has to be drawn out and finalised. But what struck me, I suppose, is, and I can't wait to talk to Billy about this, as well as the kind of apathy to a certain extent. I know Iceland's a smaller country, they're more, they're a lot more dependent on, I suppose, kind of salmon tourism. But, as I asked in the post, where's the outcry? It was just kind of like, sure, there you go now. Is it only...
It's almost old news already.
Yeah, but is it only anglers that care?
Yeah.
And fair play to Billy Smith in his post on Facebook. He's calling out Charlie McConalogue, the Minister for Agriculture, saying enough is enough.
Yeah. What has to happen? Seriously, what has to happen? Is this not enough to bring about? It's just, I don't know. You'd almost speak of smack by it, because this is, a completely environmental disaster and nothing short of it.
But you know what I think is I think because salmon numbers are down and there's kind of pessimism around the salmon numbers, it's almost as if, this was to happen affecting the wild brown trout and Corrib, there would be massive there'd be people up in arms. There would be a massive story
Yeah, you'd like
because
to
of
think there was.
yeah, you would because of the
Yeah,
economic
yeah.
and the tourism effect.
Well, there would be naturally.
Yeah, but like I don't know, for salmon, it just seems to be like, sure.
But even even aside from, and even as somebody who's involved with angling tourism, I know the importance of it. But leaving aside that, the public outcry for the whole, as I said, the environmental impact of this. You know, that we allow something, our government, our state allows something to go ahead that enables this to happen. You know, and there's no outcry about that. And we were just talking there, and in this episode, um, like as we're dealing with salmon, what wild salmon are facing, and almost a crisis point. And then, oh sure, look, as you said, what's the sort of response? Oh sure, look, it's only a few salmon anglers, but it should be a lot more. You know,
And you know what? It kind of breaks my heart is like when you look back to how symbolic and central the salmon was to Irish culture and Irish history. The salmon was on the back of our coins.
it was on the 2 shilling coin and then the ten penny coin.
I
Yeah,
still remember that looking at the back of it. It's like we've lost that kind of, every school kid knew about this or knows about the salmon of knowledge and Fionn
yeah.
McCool.
Mm,
It's like, sure, it's almost as if we've just moved on from that,
yeah.
and whatever about the now and the environment and the fish, like, I just hate to think that we're actually losing that link to
Mm.
the cultural past as well, which is, even more far reaching, I think. So anyway, look, it'll be interesting. We'll speak to Billy Smith next week about
Yeah,
this. And, and also don't forget, it's an election next year.
yeah.
I'd be interested to see what Billy and them they're going to make now in terms of turning it into an election issue, especially along the Western corridor there. Like, so
Mm.
hopefully something can be done about it. Okay, maybe some kind of more positive, good news, Tom, the
Yeah,
youth
just
competition.
get there. Yeah, just the youth competition up in Lough Melvin that we'd youth World Cup lock style fly fishing competition. It was held last Sunday. Fair play, went really well. What I can hear, I think there was over 50, nearly 50 youths competed.
Brilliant.
Some good catches. There was one by Jack Reedy, 7 fish. He won cracking fish, 78 centimeters, which I know on chart we use on our hospice competition, that will come in at 9.5 pounds. The chart we use, I don't know what they were using, a different scoring system. I think they had a maximum score. But look, fantastic. I've seen pictures of it. Some of you might have seen pictures of it on social media. Cracking fish and a big smile on Jack's face as well.
Not to be
But yeah,
sniffed at, yeah.
funnily enough. But no, great to see. And yeah, all went well. And the guys were very happy with the sponsors they had and everything. But the whole thing just was great. Look, we've been on about it here before about how we as anglers have to do things to get youths involved in fly fishing. And a big hats off to the guys up in Melbourne there for getting that done.
Well done. Yeah, first year under the belt, it all ran smoothly. Well done, guys. And yeah, bigger and better for next year. So, and again, great idea in the first place to get it up and running. So watch this space. Just before we move on to the guests as well, I do also want to make a quick mention. It's this Saturday, 14th September, International Women's Fly Fishing Day. It's the 5th year celebrating women of fly fishing. We've covered it on the episode last year with the co-founders, including Irish woman Maddie Kelly. And they're asking for women to share a fly fishing activity globally, posting a picture on the Facebook and Instagram channels this Saturday. So whether it's fly tying, fly fishing, reading a fly fishing or book, but it's a great initiative, gathering all women fly anglers together for the day digitally. And I suppose just trying to create that community and bring it together for the day all around the world. So definitely want to keep an eye out on. I think the hashtag, what is it? FD, I think that's it.
WFT.
Yeah.
Well, we'll put it up on the link center.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So another great initiative. So well done to everyone there involved. But look, let's get back to this week's guest, James Barry, to hear about his 2024 season. And he first told us about the very welcome sight of a fresh silver salmon caught recently in the back end of the season.
Yeah, so it's been an interesting season, a little bit more consistent than others, and the fishing was going quite well in July into August. We got some low water in August, and we did some kind of fishing kind of for resident fish, picky fish in the pools. But they were mostly coloured, and there had been some kind of rumours downstream that there's some fresh fish had been caught and bits and pieces like that. And we got a flood. I think it was around the 28th, around that sort of date, 28th of August, and made a trip to the river. And
actually, sorry, James, just which river, just so we make it clear for people.
The River Shore. That's my home river. And made a trip up, fishing the fallen flood, and was lucky enough to catch a fresh fish, sea lice fish at the end of August.
Right.
So that would have been my first fresh fish at the end of August, kind of September time, I would think, in 10, 15 years. So it's been mostly coloured fish. And we do have these kind of estuary resident fish that kind of hold on the lower part of the shore that will make moves upstream. Sometimes there'll be coloured fish with lice on them still, But this was a gleaming fresh fish. It was really nice and a real positive sign,
Has there been many other fresh back end caught, or was that just a rarity at the time?
No, I did hear of some other fresh fish caught throughout the river. So it was a good sign. Now, it might be due to flows, temperatures, just how things played out this season. But I suppose the eternal optimist in me will hope that it might be the early signs of a stronger back end run coming to fruition in years to come. Who knows?
Yeah, because it's funny, Thomas, that like kind of once August came, I had a chance, to kind of go out, and I was like, oh, I don't want to be fishing for kind of stale fish. It's nearly gotten to that stage. Sure, there's no back end there now. Like, sure, what fresh fish will there be? Is it worth it? But you've proved the point. It's always worth it to have a cast a line and have your fly in the water.
And I think that's what keeps a lot of guys going on the back end fishing, in the hope of the odd one. I mean, look, it's great to catch a fish anyway. But coloured fish, but if you can suddenly, like you have, just pick out a gleaming bar of silver, stop. Brilliant.
It really is. It's fantastic. And it was, back when I was younger, when I started salmon fishing, that back end run on the shore was phenomenal. I remember.
Was it? Yeah.
I remember we used to go to, September was the month to be on the river. Like you get a back end flood, and it was fantastic, fresh fish, and I've memories of them. Porpoising on the far bank and just trying to reach him with a spinner, just not been able to because I was so young. But there were some fantastic catches, and that run, I won't say it vanished overnight, but it really just stopped, disappeared. And ever since, it's, if you do catch a fish in the back end, it's, the question is, any fresh ones around? Do you see any or anything like that? So this year it's positive. We've low water again now, so I don't know if many fresh fish have been encountered. They might have settled down into the pool, so they won't be as easy to come across. But that flood at the back end of August really was a positive sign, because I know there was quite a few fish seen moving, and fresh fish moving too. So it's good. It's a positive sign.
Were you far up with that fish, roughly?
Far off. I was about 3 kilometers above the head of tide.
Right.
Yeah,
so it was straight in running.
Yeah, really nice. And there was fish, there was fish showing at the head of the pool. There was fish showing at the tail of the pool. So there was activity. You knew that there was fish around. There was fish on the move. So it's the sort of time where you're going into the pool and you're shaking in your boots with anticipation, hoping that it's going to go tight.
Well done. Couple of points on that. I just want to ask you, James. There's a lot of doom and gloom around this season off the back of a poor season last year.
Yeah.
What's your kind of thoughts or observations on it overall?
Yeah, so I won't go as far as saying the shore is an anomaly. Wild fish and wild rivers will have ups and downs and things like that. I do think, comparing 2023 to 2024 is difficult, because if we think back to 2023, right, we had a heat wave in June, water temperatures were 19, 20 degrees, ceased fishing. There was almost no fishing in June. Then in July, for us anyway, on the lower shore where I fish, we had a huge flood, 1.5 meters, 2 meters, and it dropped agonizingly slow. And that's kind of our real, that's a perfect time. That's our perfect window where we would expect to see our fresh fish and really get some good fishing. So that was gone, just like that 2023 season. Now I know fish were also thin on the ground. So, it's quite difficult. But 2024, it started positive after a slow enough spring. And I think I hooked my first fish on the 28th of May, which I didn't land. And then a couple of weeks later, I had a fish, and it kind of remained pretty consistent through June, July, and August. I very much had the kind of silver blinkers on then, and it was kind of all roads lead to the shore. So it was lovely this season in that I was speaking to a friend that I fish with regularly on the shore, and he said, "How nice is it to be going to the river, expecting to catch a fish and more than in hope?" You know what I mean? So this season it was nice in that regard. But there was nothing easy about it. It's a lot of kind of putting hours in on the river and trying to be there in the right place at the right time. And when you fish a river regularly and you're on it, you're kind of immersed in that environment. You know what to expect. You can almost, you're looking at tides, you're looking at water levels, you're looking at rain, cloud cover, and you can just make the run when you know it's good to go. So fortunate in that regard that it's only a quick spin up the road, so you can go when conditions are spot on. So,
and it was definitely better than 23 for the shore.
Yeah. But it's like comparing chalk and cheese, really, with regards to conditions. I mean, it was one of what didn't that Aaron say? It's the coldest summer in 9 years or something like that. So, like that's brilliant for salmon. And we were also quite fortunate in that we had a couple of floods. Like we had a flood at the start of June, end of June, but they weren't big floods. They were just little top ups for us to kind of encourage some fish up. They dropped quite slowly, and conditions were really kind of on point, which helps a lot.
Yeah, it's funny when you say that. I mean, we do know 2023 was a very bad year, but can't really forget the conditions we had either.
Yeah, exactly.
It was almost polar opposites from June to July, as you said there.
It really was.
Do you think actually, just like you're saying, Tom, do you think maybe there's too much of a rush to comparing whereas like you said, you have to take into context because the seasons are changing so much, month by month, year by year, that it's nearly now you nearly can't go year on year.
But you see, that's what we go on.
Yeah, we have to go.
That's our mantra almost. It's year on year. What last year was like? Oh, we're up on last year. We're down on last year. But it's really interesting to hear you say that, James, because we forget that. And it was like July for me, 2023 was one of my best Julys on Corrib because we had rain and southwesterlies the whole month. It was just there was no summer. There really wasn't, but it was really good for the lake. But I remember around here, like every place was in flood. The lake went high and everything. So you got to get this. But no matter what you say, people were still going to go compare it year on year.
Yeah.
It was that.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it's human nature. Yeah.
James, tell us as well. What about further afield? Did you go beyond the shore?
Yeah. So my season started in January, actually, down in Argentina. So I did go.
Oh, poor you.
Yeah. So
were you there with Connor? Was it
2023? No, I was with one other guy from Ireland, Darren Duffy. He's from Fermoy, Lough Angler. You probably know him, Tom. And I was with two other guys. One guy from Wales and one guy from Finland. And so it was a small group. Went down and got to fish the Tierras del Fuego and Rio Grande. So it was amazing.
You got to give us a bit more than that.
It's
trying to sound, passe about it.
But the opportunity came up, and it was one that was kind of always on my radar from a very young age, from watching Paul Young and whatnot on television. Fishing down there is just the place if you're into kind of swinging flies for anadromous salmonids. So it was always high on the list. The opportunity came up. It was kind of put out as a youth week, youths under 35s, an opportunity to go to see Rio Grande and fish in Aurelia Lodge on the first week of the season at a discounted price. And it was now or never, really, and I made the leap, and it was great bunch of guys. We travelled down 2 days travelling, I think it was, over to London, then down to Buenos Aires, overnight there before we flew out to Ushuaia. I think we took off from Buenos Aires. It was 28 degrees, landed down south, and it was back down to like 14, so big difference in temperatures there. And we then took the road up to the Rio Grande and had a fantastic week, kind of. We had 8 miles of river, I think it was, 4 rods, and we just we kind of paired up and had some fantastic fishing. Darren had a fish up around 20 pounds, which was just incredible to see. I think we all had kind of mid-teen fish. We all had kind of 1 or 2 fish a day. The expectations were set by the guy who organised the trip, Stephen Jones,
yes,
from Wales.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so he kind of said, "Look, guys, expect 1 or 2 fish a day," and expectations were definitely met, if not exceeded, by the end of the week. You had good days, bad days. There was quiet periods. There was windy periods.
Was it windy for you?
Yeah. Day two was like wind I've never felt before. But then there was always this kind of beautiful part of the evening where it was just calm and everything. It was freakishly calm. The wind would be howling so much, you'd have your hood up, you wouldn't be able to hear a thing. And then it would just calm. You could hear the birds, you could hear the fish. And it was just, that kind of last light was just magic, it really was.
Tell me this, what kind of like tactics, how were you catching them?
Switch rods, floating lines, and intermediate tips. Really nice stuff. We fished bigger kind of intruder flies as we were coming into darkness. But during the day it was sunray shadows and small kind of little salmon flies like silver stoats, blue and silvers, things like that. Work quite well, and it was. There was a mixture of fish that had been in quite a while because we were expecting, because it was early season, that everything was going to be clean and fresh, which a lot of them were. But there was fish that were kind of in the system maybe 3-4 weeks, So it was a mix of fish, and it was just an incredible fishery, incredible place to get to experience the whole place. Argentina, the people, the food, the fishing. It has it all.
Would you go back?
Yeah.
I would.
Not anytime soon, I'm afraid, James.
Not anytime soon. Anytime soon. I knew I had to make my move, and that was it.
Is it one of those places you say to kind of any fly angler, if you can, just try do it once? Yeah,
absolutely. If you can, if you get a sniff of an opportunity, you just got to take it. You got to go for it. It really is an incredible place.
Yeah, it's amazing. Anyone we talked to, isn't it, Tom, that been down there? It just sounds incredible, Okay, tell us. So that was a great start to the season. How could you top that? Is it hard actually coming back from the high of that?
To the high of that, and then back to the River Slaney on the 18th of March in flood. But no, it was great. I've been fortunate to fish in a lot of places like that, and you kind of just have to just kind of park it as just like that's elsewhere. It's so separate to your home fishing. Like it's a glimpse into I said to one of my friends, it's like a time machine. It's like going back in time to seeing what fishing was like potentially around our rivers. 200, 300 years ago. I don't know, something like that. So you just gotta just park it away in the memory bank and look back on the photos. But no, it didn't deter any of my kind of home fishing. I'd like to think it didn't anyway, because I was straight back into spring salmon fishing at the 18th of March kind of thing, back down on the Slaney, and so I fish a stretch on the Slaney, which is about 10 or 15 kilometers above Enniscorthy. So it's probably classed as the lower reaches, and just flows remain so high for what I suppose most of the locals on the Slaney would class as the prime time. So kind of that kind of middle to end of April is when you kind of get your bulk of fish, but flows were just so high, very, very difficult fishing, and we still fished on, and people on the section where I fish had fish, and there was fish landed on the opposite bank,
All right.
And if if you did put your fly in front of a fish, you could hook up if you got lucky. But I'd one contact for the month and a half's fishing, and it came off. So that was on the 22nd of April, and that coincided with I think I was looking back on the flow levels, just keep a note of them in the diary, and that was actually the lowest flow that we had for kind of the spring fishing that we had down on the Slaney this year, and coincided with that. But the fish was only on for maybe 5 or 10 seconds, it was gone, and that was it. And that kind of brought me up until the middle of May then, and then kind of I started to shift focus back over to my home river, which would be the Shore, and then obviously the Sheelin stuff as well, which will be happening in May too. So
Yeah, and actually, maybe talk to us about that. The Sheelin, it's something that's kind of got more under your skin, kind of, has it? Like in terms of you want to really start doing more of it.
yeah, the loch fishing is an interesting one. When I was studying in Scotland, I got to fish with one of my friends over there. Brought me up to the lakes in West Ross. Incredible place. Never forget it. And he brought me loch fishing for wild brownies in these Scottish Highland lakes, and loved it. Just pulling wet flies. And he said, like, God, if you're into this, you have the best of this at home. But I'm, obviously down in Waterford, so we don't. I won't say locks aren't on our radar. They are, of course. Like, we read all about them in all the fly fishing books, but it's a big journey up west, up the Corrib. It's an intimidating place. Sheelin too. If you're not used to lakes, so they never really got the opportunity. Never really had the in until about, I think it was probably 7 years ago. Some friends invited me up to Sheelin, and on the very first night, I somehow managed to fluke a 4 pound brownie on a spent pattern. And I mean, this brownie took it, and it was a very kind fish, because I don't think I struck until about 5 seconds later, until everybody in the boat was shouting strike, strike. So eventually landed at that fish, and yeah, so mayfly became a kind of an annual thing up to Sheelin for a few years, and yeah, it really got under the skin. It's just a great form of fish, and I really enjoy it.
Well, I am beginning to know it's a bit of a trend here now, because Johnny Casey as well was sort of espousing the bit of the trout fishing. Now there you are, trout fishing as well. Tell you guys, you're going to see the light sometimes. Trout is the way.
So, but that also coincided, though, James, wasn't it, with a work project as well, which we're obviously going to delve into later in a couple of months' time. But you might just give us a kind of a quick kind of taster of it.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, the Lough Sheelin tagging project was initiated 2 years ago, project by Inland Fisheries Ireland and with support of LSTPA. It's been quite a big success. So the pilot year was 2022. We tagged over 30 fish. So we're tracking the movements and behavior of the fish within the lake, seeing how they're reacting to heat wave events, seeing where they're going to spawn, seeing recapture rates, all sorts of interesting things like that, and distances that they're covering within the lake, and habitat use. And then this year, 2024, should I say, was quite a successful year from a tagging front. I think we now have over 70 fish tagged within the lake, doing their thing, and giving us loads of data and loads of information on where they're going and what they're doing, which is all kind of feeding into this kind of fish behavior study, which we're just trying to understand better how they react to kind of environmental changes, and things like that. So exactly, there's been a recent data download, which with the whole summer's worth of new data. So definitely, yeah, it'll be something to talk to in a bit more detail for sure.
Tom, you'll be looking
Really
forward to it.
really looking forward to hear, because I've heard snippets of it. So I really can't wait to discuss that with you. The whole thing sounds absolutely fascinating. Really does. And some stories and people talking of their own trout, and you've told us about the trout, but and the recapturing. Yeah, can't wait to hear about that. Really can't.
Was there a tracking project done on Corrib? Because I remember you used to give a talk, Tom, on was it the spawning habits of the trout? Or
there was tracking done. Trout were tagged on the Corrib in 1911. Remember hear about that, James?
No.
Yeah, from the Uachtaráid hatchery, which was run at the time, Corrib Association, the hatchery at Uachtaráid, and they tagged trout. I have it there somewhere. It's in a book. I can't fill in with all the details, but Trout were recaptured, you know, good pieces away from the hatchery. I think, you know, they were taking down the lower lake almost. I'm a bit hazy now about the details of it. I must look it up. I'll look it up
Yeah.
again for the next time. Yeah, but it was 1911 they tagged them. Yeah.
Wow. There you go.
Mm.
So people were interested all that time ago as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're
And we
still doing
still
the same
are.
thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Still coming to the same conclusions.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually, James, just a purely practical, how does that work? The tagging and the tracking? Like, are you tracking it 24/7? How does that mechanics of it
So
work?
we're using a technology called acoustic telemetry, and in essence, what it is a little acoustic tag is implanted into the fish. So we catch the fish. Rod and line is preferable, and we have holding tanks then on the boat. Then the procedure from start to finish takes approximately 2 minutes. So we put the fish into anesthetic, we measure it, do all the weights, things like that, and then just surgically implant the tags, stitch it back up, put a little blue fly tag into the dorsal so people know that it has an expensive tag in the stomach. And then we release it. And what we have then is what we call an array throughout the lake. So the array is fixed receivers, and these receivers are about the size of a flask. So anyone who's been fishing on Sheelin would have seen all the buoys across the lake, and underneath those buoys are the acoustic receivers listening to the tags. So if a tag swims within, we'll say, 200 to 500 meters of that acoustic receiver, it gets the fish's ID and it gives it the depth that the fish is swimming at. So what we do then is we gather all the data in, and you can run this little kind of triangulation algorithm for all the world on the data, and that gives you kind of a weighted center of activity of where that fish was for that 15-minute period. And it can be quite accurate, you know, and then we join the dots together to pretty much create a track of where that fish has been, what depth it's been swimming at, where it goes in the evening times, where it goes in the morning times, you know. Fascinating stuff,
Yeah.
just fascinating insights into seeing how the fish behave, especially fish behavior post capture. So it's been interesting watching how the fish react. So we, as I mentioned there, we've had some recaptures, actually looking at the behavior directly after the recapture. So I know angler, whoever has caught, you know, fish 1, 2, 3 at Orange Fields. Let's see what happened a day after that fish was released. What did he get up to? Did he go down to the deeps? Did he keep moving? So it's been really interesting, and then also getting to follow the fish that you catch yourself, which is pretty nice.
I love this. To find out what that fish did, tune in on the December. I want to hear. I want to hear. Sorry.
But didn't you say, Tom, you had heard is that like the fish were going deeper because of all the boat traffic on the lake?
Yeah, is that true?
Yeah. So there was some kind of tentative data. So at the LSTPA meeting last December, I was looking at the Chambers receiver, which was just outside Chambers Bay. So it's obviously quite a heavy boat traffic there, and it's quite a popular spot for the fish too. And I was watching two individuals. So this will obviously have to be quantified and all that, and run through models. But the two fish I was observing, I was watching their kind of patterns of behavior, and they were happily kind of moseying about Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at kind of 0 to 2 meters. And they were quite content up on the surface, and it's the behavior that I kind of marked down as, you know, happy feeding behavior, you know, and they'd make kind of some intervals down to like maybe 5 or 6 meters. But they were irregular, you know, the deep dives are, sorry, they're not deep dives, but dives to 5 or 6 meters weren't very regular in the fish behavior. And then on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, the fish kind of dropped to 4 or 5 meters. And I initially thought, you know, there's been a change in wind, there's been a change in pressure, there's been some sort of environmental change. You know, that's where my head was going straight away to see what had caused this. And there was nothing. The weather was remarkably consistent. You know, it was a big high pressure spell, perfect kind of fishing conditions. So I was thinking then, okay, each one of my receivers has a decibel recorder on it, and on that you can see kind of noise, and it's just an acoustic environment to tell you how good your receiver is hearing your tags that are swimming around. But I kind of use it as a proxy for boat noise, because obviously the spikes will be much higher when the boat's kind of rev right over the top of my receiver. I'll be getting spikes, and all these spikes start coming into the data on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, just when you'd expect boats to be traveling out. And the fish, it was almost right on the time that just drop away down to that kind of, 4 or 5 meters, and kind of be a little bit more reluctant to spend time in the upper layers. So what we're going to do now is we're going to try to quantify that. So we'll do hours spent in 0 to 2 meters versus hours spent at 4 to 5 meters, and try to get a picture about that. Try to put a number on it. So that's kind of
That's
it
brilliant.
in a nutshell. That's the
Yeah.
word that got out.
Yeah, yeah, but it must be fascinating for you, obviously, as an angler, and as a fishery scientist. It's like it's starting to paint a picture, a 3D picture for you, isn't it? In terms of the way the fish are going, where they're going. Like it's like coloring it in, like.
Absolutely, yeah. It really is fascinating stuff, and seeing how these fish are reacting to extreme conditions in the lake is one of our big questions too. Because Sheelin has pressures, and it's a shallow lake, and looking at behavior of fish when it starts to go from 20 degrees at the top of the lake to 20 degrees at the bottom of the lake, and watching, as the temperatures begin to build, and as the fish begin to drop with the kind of seeking that thermal refuge, and then suddenly they run out of thermal refuge because it goes from 20 degrees from top to bottom. And then what the hell they do? They run to the surface, which was something I wasn't expecting. And they show this kind of irritable behavior for all the world, where they will actually move erratically around the lake very, very quickly. And what I'm trying to do now is trying to kind of see if are they trying to seek thermal refuge? Is this a dissolved oxygen issue, or what it might be linked to? So it's very, very interesting stuff. But then it's great in the fact that this year was so polar opposite to 2023. So it'll be a fantastic comparison between years, because this year they were, I would think, quite content, except for maybe a handful of days where we had high temperatures.
And what's the tracking period?
So the batteries in a tag will last for about 12 to 16 months, depending on the tag type. So the fish that would have been tagged back in 2023 will be kind of, those tags will be expiring soon enough, and then the fish that are out at the moment will get right up into 2025.
We will delve into it and on in a couple of months' time, so stay tuned for that one. That'll be brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So, James, you went, you were working up in Sheelin for for the week, or however long it was, or whatever you want to call it. But you got your fill of fishing in as well. So after that, then did you turn back to the salmon during the summer, June, July? Or
yes,
but saltwater is a big thing for you as well. So when did that start to come onto the horizon for you?
Yeah, so I'll try to keep on track now of species and seasons. So we're in the mayfly in Sheelin. That was fantastic. So yeah, got to track the whole season in Sheelin. So it was very nice, like, because I got to arrive at the buzzer time, got to catch my first trout on a buzzer, which was brilliant.
Nice.
Like I was delighted with that. I got a lot of help from anglers and lots of flies from Darren to try to help me catch these fish. But eventually got to experience some great buzzer fishing, and then into the nymphs, and then into the dry fly. So we got to track the whole season. So you're like fully immersed in the environment. It was fantastic. And from there, then I was back down to home in June kind of time. And there was a little bit of fishing at the start of June, if I remember right. And we got some kind of nice kind of fish between 10 and 13 pounds were showing up in the catches. But fishing was still a little bit slow on the shore. I think we hadn't had a flood. We didn't get a flood until the middle of June, and we actually got down to the Munster Blackwater for some fishing I believe it was somewhere in early June. I think we met you down there, Dara, that day, me and Jason there.
Yeah, was it early June?
And yeah, I think it might have been mid kind of June. There was kind of a flood on the Blackwater, and some nice fish turned up between kind of 7 to 10 pound kind of size. And we had a fantastic day down there, and that really then just kind of kickstarted the salmon season for me, really, because on the back of that flood, then we had some quite consistent fishing on the shore right up until the end of the June, where we had kind of nice kind of sizable runs of 6 to 8 pound fish coming into the shore. Nice sea lice fish. It was really quite nice. Then in the middle of July, we had another, again, keep saying nice floods, but they were really favorable floods for the shore, because the July previous we were having 1.5, 2 meter floods, and where we fish on the lower shore, it's over your head. You just can't fish it. So this year we were just getting nice little lifts that would encourage some fish up, and there were some fantastic fish caught throughout the system. We had fish where we fished there on the lower reach, between maybe 12 to 15 pounds kind of size, really, really fresh fish.
Wow.
So that's just, magic fishing when you come on a fish that are in off the tide like that. They're generally quite happy to take kind of a strip sunray or something along those lines. So it can be really exciting fishing, because you can see the nice thing about where we fish on the shore, there's quite a big holding pool, and as I was saying, it's about 3 kilometers above the head of tide. So in the holding pool, you'll have your resident fish, but what will happen when the fresh fish move into the pool, you'll see the residents obviously get a bit irritated or agitated, and they'll start popping and moving. And you'll know that there's action, there's fresh fish after moving into the pool, and that can be fantastic. So we had some great fishing in July, but again, it was being at the right place at the right time. There was plenty of blank days in there as well. Don't get me wrong, plenty of hard days, but the good days kind of make up for that, I suppose. And then we drifted into August, into kind of lower water conditions, but the fishing was still quite good, because where we are in the lower reaches, we still had good flows through the beats where we fish, and it was quite enjoyable fishing. It gets quite technical, kind of long leaders, tiny flies, but some good fish were still caught. And then that brought us up to the flood at the end of August, where we saw some fresh fish again. So overall, it was a pretty positive season. It was, as I was saying, it was nice to kind of travel to the river with a kind of expectation of seeing a fish, instead of just, geez, I hope we see something today.
Listen to you there, James. There's a couple of things I get from it. Is one is consistency of effort, and also, I suppose, maximising that opportunity in terms of reading the conditions, and also it's tidal water. So you're looking at high tide, is it, when the water is pushing in? And what about taking times? Is there specific, like, were you finding dusk? Was it like any times during the day you found particularly good?
And we're kind of at a stage now we kind of have to go when we get a chance, but generally it's early mornings, late evenings. Early mornings, late evenings. But you will get fish traveling through in the middle of the day. Tide is important. When you're that close to the head of the tide, we always keep an eye on it. We keep an eye on neap tides. We keep an eye on high spring tides. Do we see fish when people have different theories on things? People would think that fish will move through on the smaller neap tides, that fish won't travel as much on the bigger spring tides. You'll get fish on a flooding tide versus fish on an ebbing tide. You've all those sort of theories and stuff like that. But generally,
do
yeah, who do you?
Yeah, do you heed them? Like, have you found anything of these? Let's say, I won't call them old wives' tales, but you know what I mean. Are there certain, like, would you say, oh, neap tide? Yeah, I'm going to be down there. I really am.
There is certain tides that we like, but generally it's more to do with water level conditions and water temperature. I find is kind of a key variable. Fish can come through at any stage of the tide. That's what I've learned over the years, that you can't just say, oh, they're going to come through on the high tide. You'll always kind of get if the grills are around, you'll generally see kind of a sprinkler and a fish might come through on the high tide. But then there's other times where fish will move through on a drop in neap tide. But it's something that I would be, when I'm leaving here to go to the river, I'm checking to see when high tide is. So that's definitely a variable that comes into the mix.
Yeah. As you said, all right, water level and all of that might be very important, but tide plays its part too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And speaking of tides, did you get out to the salt much?
Yeah, so then the end of August, I said, look, I might leave well enough alone. It's just been such a good season now. I could kind of see in the forecast that we were coming into kind of, there wasn't much rain in the forecast, and I said, look, we'll shift focus over to the bass, because autumn bass fishing is my absolute favorite time of the year now. I would have done bits and pieces at the start of spring. Kind of I suppose the shoulder seasons are my favorite time for bass. Kind of March to May, kind of into June would be some of my favorite times. We do tend to see a little lull in the bass fishing in the summertime. But as well as that, obviously there's salmon as well in the summertime. So that interferes with the bass fishing slightly. But generally, autumn is kind of, I suppose what I'd say now, we're in September. The spring tides in September would be, I suppose, a bass fisherman's equivalent to the mayfly. That's our big kind of mark in the calendar. When you see those spring tides in September, you're kind of, you're starting to think of the coast, and you'll see, I suppose you'll even have seen it on social media over the last week. Catches have been significant all along the south coast. There's been some remarkable fish captured, from Kerry all the way down to Wexford. So it's been really good. The start of September, starting hitting the coast a bit more, and fishing has been particularly good on the Copper Coast. So that would be my kind of area where I fish generally for the bass, all along the Copper Coast between kind of Tramore and Dungarvan.
And would you go fly only, or would you bring the spinning rod and see how it's faring?
Yeah, so I suppose I made the move to saltwater when I was younger, when the salmon fishing was kind of dwindling away on the shore. It was particularly tough. I was kind of like 17, 18, wanted to go fishing with the lads. It was hard to get fishing on the river. So we went sea fishing, bait fishing, lure fishing, everything. And that was kind of, 20s, where I spent a lot of time on the coast lure fishing. I would say it was probably 90% lures, 10% fly. And now I'm at a stage where I would say 99% fly and 1% lure. At the moment, it's just I suppose the way it's evolved.
Is it more though the fact that you've put the time in terms of the conditions, the marks, so you kind of you've a good enough feeling now that you don't have to put the lure out, you can actually use the fly and you be confident enough.
Yeah, it helps. It helps having that knowledge. I often said that the bait fishing informs my lure fishing, and then the lure fishing informs my fly fishing. And yeah, we're at a stage now where we'll go to and target a reef for a specific hour, and the fish are there, they're not. And we know from lure fishing days that it's your hour, that hour is the best chance. And you don't need to throw long casts at a lot of the places along the Copper Coast. So Copper Coast was what I'd kind of class as open coast fishing. And I think a lot of people see bass fishing as this just this one shoe fits all, but it's very different between open coast fishing to, say, your estuary fishing, to surf fishing, to back up right up into the estuaries, or back up into fishing rips. It'd probably be similar to river fishing for trout versus lake fishing for trout. That's the differences. And the open coast fishing, it's testing, but it's just a fantastic place to kind of a wild setting to catch a very cool fish. And it can be a lot of fun on the fly. It really can.
Yeah.
It's just when you were talking there, James, and it's funny, and I harken back to you said earlier on about how Corrib could be an intimidating place, and then I hear you going saltwater fishing, and I'll be honest with you here, I haven't done it, and for me to go saltwater fishing, I would find going to the sea very intimidating. And where the hell do you start? And then actually, and I was thinking of that as you were saying it, and you mentioned there that you probably concentrated on lure fishing first.
Mm-hmm.
And do you think that, would you suggest that, let's say, from somebody like you were freshwater, you were a riverman. Mm-hmm. Do you think that helped you when you were suddenly faced with the intimidating sea, shall we say?
Absolutely. Look, the lure fishing was a huge learning curve, and we fished a lot for numerous years and got to know it very, very well. And absolutely helped with my fly fishing. But then on the flip side of that, I've had a lot of friends come from the fly fishing world that come in and say, look, I don't want to go lure fishing. I just want to go fly fishing. And for people like that, I say, okay, that's absolutely fine. You can absolutely do that. But the best place to kind of start would probably be estuaries, sheltered areas where you can kind of get to learn the habits of the fish, learn about tides, things like that. So estuaries are a great place for people to start purely from a fly fishing perspective. But I think from an open coast fishery where you're on the rocks, you're hitting certain reefs, you're covering a lot of ground. The lure background certainly helps. Like the Copper Coast, for example, is 25 kilometers of rocky reefs.
Yeah.
It's not unusual for us to get in the car and fish a place for high water for half an hour. Not happening there. Jump in the car, go to the next spot. You're using the car as your boat almost to move between locations. We
Right.
could
Yeah.
we could fish 5 or 6 locations in a ebb tide. So there's that, and the lure fishing is an excellent way for covering water and learning the ground. So it definitely helps. But there's absolutely nothing stopping just someone with a 7 or 8 weight and a floating line heading down to a beach and fishing off the rocks either side of where the sand meets the rocks is always a fantastic place for bass.
Great tips there. And like you said, it's got to the stage now it's 99% you're out with the fly rod anyway, so it can be done.
Oh no, it can. And look, autumn bass fishing is definitely the time to do it, because it gives us a chance to avail of a pretty significant movement of bait fish that happens around this time of the year, and that's the sprat. And throughout most of the year, they're kind of found in the outer parts of the coast, and they're just feeding on zooplankton up and down through the water columns. And then as the days start to shorten and the temperatures drop, the sprat will move inshore, and this is when you'll see the mackerel chasing the sprat, and you'll see burst ups of sprat and stuff like that. So that's like the kind of dream conditions. And that's the sort of areas where you kind of target, like the sprat will love those sheltered bays, getting into those kind of loitering around those areas. And if you see the mackerel coming in, the bass will be pretty close behind, so it can be a fantastic time of the year.
All you're missing is the pike in the winter now, James.
I don't know if you chance on my arm.
but have you done, because like you're such an all-rounder, but you all the species you seem to be targeting, and you're able to do it with the fly rod. Has pike ever been on your radar, or do you just kind of like to hang up the rod?
Yeah, no, I've done pike. We have a cool little lake close to us here in Waterford called Bell Lake. It's between Waterford City and Dunmore East, and that is a good head of pike in there. And yeah, generally try to get over there, once or twice a year, just for a bit of pike fishing. It's enjoyable too, and the bass gear works, so it's easy.
So if you were to kind of look at your fly fishing year, and in terms of kind of priorities, would it be 1, salmon, 2, mayfly, 3, autumn bass, or what way would you do it? Like,
I couldn't. I don't know.
It's like naming a favorite child.
Yeah,
we all have one, but just don't say it publicly.
Yeah, it was much easier when time was a bit freer and you could just do everything and run between everything, and stay out, fish in the river in the morning and fish for bass by night. But I think my season now is just kind of segmented into chunks: bit of spring fishing for salmon, trout on Sheelin, and then into the salmon, and then the autumn bass fishing. So it's pretty good.
And then the yearly excursion then down to Argentina.
I wish.
But you know what? Actually, I think you have it right though, James. Because like we're always complaining about time and opportunities to go fishing, but I think you're dead right. Is to kind of divide it up into those chunks and just focus, maybe like you said, mayfly. Focus in on the trout at mayfly. Focus in on the bass in the autumn and September. Focus in on the salmon in June, July when the conditions are. I think that's the best way to do it.
Let the conditions decide.
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
that's it.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
it. Let the conditions decide. James, it's been absolutely great talking to you, and actually great as well that we got a little taster.
Yeah.
A little teaser of what's to come. So I'm really looking forward to that. to the one on the tagging. But listen, before we go, and because you've been on the show before, we will ask you another type of most memorable question. What's been your most memorable fish on the fly for this season?
Oh, for this season.
Yeah.
Oh, that's got me now because I was thinking all day of what's my most memorable fish. For this season, I would think it would probably have to be a salmon that I hooked in. I think it was mid-July. Luckily, right place, right time. Fallen floods and some fresh fish were moving through the system, and fish was up on 15 pounds and absolutely clean and fresh, beautiful fish. And I reckon that's probably my top fish of the season.
You see, Tom, he's still a salmon angler at heart.
Yeah.
Tom,
what's the most memorable fish then? Hold on. What's the most memorable one?
Because I was talking to a friend that said, "Oh, you'll have to have your memorable fish ready now." And my most memorable fish that I had thought of was actually one from Lough Sheelin. The trout from Lough Sheelin.
Tell us about that one, please.
Keep it short, James. Keep it short.
Oh, no, we're
running out of time.
We have loads of time.
No, because I was thinking back. I was like, they're going to expect a bass or a salmon or something like that now, you know. But it was actually because it was a good story in that it was probably one of our first years going to Sheelin, and we got we did no good. Like we had 2 nights of like hopeless fishing, rejections after rejections, like pulling out a fish, just scaring fish more than anything. And on the second evening, we were covering some fish and missed our chances. It was very busy on the lake, and Jason, who I was fishing with, he said, "Look, let's just go out first thing in the morning, 5 o'clock, and let's just have a little go then when it's a bit quieter." And we were like, grand, okay. So we got back to the B&B for our sleep up at the crack of dawn, got down to the slipway, and engine wouldn't start. Just absolutely nothing, nothing coming out of the engine. And I was like, this stage it was I turned to Jason one stage and said, let's go back to the B&B and get the breakfast and leave it off. It's grand. And he just turned to me and says, "Go out of that," and got the oars out, just rowed us out into Chambers Bay, and I'm sitting up in the front of the boat, cold, looking out, and just at the back of the island, you could see this trout sipping. Just, you couldn't ride it, and he's just rowing us out, and he says, "You see it?" And I said, "Yeah," and he goes, got us perfect distance, and the fish read the script, just dropped the spent beside it. Came up and nailed it, and it was 5 1/4 pounds, and it was just a brilliant moment because we'd struggled for so long, and then I almost threw in the towel twice, only for Jason to push it out. So it's choose your fishing friends wisely.
Yeah, Jason was pushing you on. Don't give up, boy. Don't give up to the death now, boy.
That's a good
so
story.
That's excellent.
Yeah, that's definitely a memorable fish.
Yep.
I'd still take the 15-pound salmon.
No. Well, I'm afraid now it's 2-1 against you. No, the 15-pound salmon, lovely. No, I won't knock it. But
I tell you, Jason, you've had plenty of good fish this year anyway. Whether it's salmon, sea trout, brown trout. So fair play to you. It's been a great season. And you know what? It's great to hear stories like that from accomplished anglers like yourselves who are out, that you might hear a lot of negativity around certain things, but look, if you get out there enough times, there's fish to be caught there as well. So, keep the flag flying, as they say. James, I can't wait to talk to you in December for the tracking, and I know you'll be busy until then. So we'll look forward to finding out about the brown trout in Lough Sheelin and what they get up to. So James, listen, thanks a million for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Our thanks to James Barry for joining us on the show. And don't forget to rate, review and follow the Ireland on the Fly podcast on Apple, Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Plus you can keep up to date on IrelandOnTheFly.com as well as on Instagram, and myself and Tom will be back with another episode about the people and places of fly fishing in Ireland.